welcome to #Leadership What's on Your Mind, another episode to make you think about your leadership journey and by telling stories of great people on their leadership journey about pushing you forwards and making that next step forward. So today we're speaking to Ishtar. How are you doing, Ishtar? Are you okay?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So Ishtar, I've met Ishtar through lockdown and online. We have met once, which is awesome. You've got a great story, transitioning across from corporate into running your own business. And as we know by now, we've got 20 minutes to dig into that and talk about your leadership perspectives. So I'm going to start the clock. Just introduce yourself for those people who don't know you.
Sure. So my name's Ishtar Adi and I run a building contracting company called Ancora Renovate. We're based in Manchester. I'm also a property developer and I am retraining to be an interior designer at the minute. But I'll tell you a little bit about my backstory and why that's so relevant.
Yeah, do you know, I've heard you say that a few times, and I know, and I can see people online when they go, wow, that's a lot of things that you're doing, a lot of things, which is amazing. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, really, because you're really inspirational and sort of go-getter and know where you're going. So we always start with a question. And the question is about whether you're aware of it or just on reflection. Where do you think your personal leadership journey started?
I think it really goes to my backstory. So I'll explain kind of where I've come from and what I'm doing. So university, I studied business, didn't really know what I wanted to get into, but fell into HR because I managed to get my first job in an HR function. Loved HR completely, had a very supportive first boss who encouraged me to study a diploma and get my professional qualifications in HR. And I then joined a larger organisation and really kind of was surrounded by very influential HR people. Generally, when you're in HR, you expect that to be best practice when it comes to people leadership because we preach it to all of the leaders in an organisation. So naturally, we're expecting to then have that leadership as an example within our teams. And I really did get that when I was in the UK. It was absolutely phenomenal in terms of the support. I was, selected to be on their graduate programme and kind of fast-tracked. And there was a lot of kind of reflection and motivation from the leaders that were in my team to kind of say, you can do it. And the one piece of advice that actually I got very early in my career that kind of stuck with me throughout was dress for the position that you want, not the position that you have. And honestly, for some reason that resonated with me, and I used that as the basis of kind of then growing my career over the last 16 years. So I started off as an assistant, went to administrator level, and then was constantly trying to demonstrate to my leaders that I was capable of doing more. And they then saw that and were then, supporting me in terms of encouraging my development. And I think that really shaped the kind of leader then that I began, because I saw how powerful it was in unlocking my discretionary effort as an employee and how engaged I was, because I was just getting no financial incentive for it, but more the non-financial rewards side of it and the positive vibes that kind of came with it. And it was super powerful for me at that time. And then I got an opportunity to move to Dubai. Right when there was the big recession in 2008, which was probably not great timing, but it happened. Lots of learnings there. Had not a great leadership at that point. I kind of encountered a manager who couldn't handle stress, and instead of kind of protecting us from that stress, was pushing it down onto us, and I got quite sick from that. And I remember thinking to myself at that point that I never want to be that kind of leader. I want to be a leader that can soak it up and can dispel it and protect the team and only provide, positive, constructive feedback to a team so that there was no negative vibes, because really I understood firsthand how that felt. And then that was really the only kind of bad leadership in an HR role that I had, and I was blessed that I then had very other supportive people. And I think whether you're an employee or a leader, you attract what you put out. I think that that's really important. So if you're naturally an energetic and a positive person, people will always pick up on those vibes. So I'm always very conscious, you know, from a leadership perspective, that I need to do that and create this kind of environment. So I did.
I just pick up on something quickly.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting that you mentioned that, because it's something that I really am quite passionate about as well, because we go out there and we encourage people to go and look for all the positive stuff.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that you mentioned then about how much you picked up on a negative experience and how you can use that to mold who you're becoming. So that's interesting. So yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely learn from good and bad experiences. And my philosophy in life, Stu, is that try everything once, and even if you get a bad experience from it, learn from that bad experience. That's kind of how I work. And so I didn't just want to forget that negative experience that I had. I wanted to make sure that I was becoming a better person, and I would never let anybody feel how I felt in that position. And it's this age-old saying that people don't leave companies, they leave managers. I left that company because of that manager, but I would have stayed with that company had she not been there. So it was very, very true for me. And so, you know, it was still very early in my career, probably within the first 5 years of my career. And so it really stood me in good stead then to be like, that is my pain point that I felt. Let's make sure that that isn't an environment that I create for my team. So did the HR thing for 11 years, had extremely good leaders. My last role involved me reporting directly to a CEO, which was the first time that I hadn't reported into a functional HR leader. So I was much more responsible then for everything that happened, because he was a non-technical leader. Working for an entrepreneur was really amazing, honestly, because the way that entrepreneurs' brain works is very much out of the box. It's very exciting. It's very change oriented. And actually, I was working probably 18 hours a day, but I didn't care because it was just so exhilarating in terms of that journey. And he really unlocked something inside of me that pushed me to, you know, work hard and achieve lots and really work as if it was my company. And I was like, oh my God, I hope I can do that for somebody one day. Like, you know, I hope that somebody, you know, would want to work with me the way that I want to work with my manager. And my management style at that point was very much, okay, HR is my, you know, my area of expertise. I have a team underneath me. They work independently. I don't micromanage. And basically they know the boundaries, so that when things need to be escalated, they escalate it, but otherwise they have free reign to do what they need to do, given that I've, you know, trained them up. And that's how I've always worked. But it changed. Bring it to today. I left Dubai last year, set up the building contracting company in January. The format is completely different. One, because it's now your baby and you're not working for a big corporate anymore that you're going to get a guaranteed income. This is now you are working for yourself. If you don't work, you don't get any money. How do you unlock discretionary effort and engage employees that are subcontractors, which is currently my model? It's super challenging. And how do you build a level of trust and enable those subcontractors essentially to understand your culture and your values when they aren't directly employed by you? So that's some of the work that I'm kind of doing at the moment. But interestingly enough, I had a discussion with my coach yesterday. We were talking about how my leadership has then changed from when I was in corporate and I was in my comfort zone to now being in construction, which is not my comfort zone. And how I'm handling situations versus what I did before. And it is completely different. I'm on a journey and I don't think I've learned the best way to do it yet, honestly. I'm kind of practicing.
Yeah, I think it's built in the military. We used to always say about you're putting more tools in your toolbox.
Yeah.
And just listening to that last little bit that you said then is like the first thing that came to my mind is, do we ever have it all sorted? And I would suggest not.
Yeah, no.
And you are that on that journey, aren't you? Of always picking up little bits.
Yeah. I think it's, as a leader, it's always really important to be self-aware. I think that that's a hugely important part of being a good leader, listening as well, and I'm the type of person that likes to communicate clearly and for things to make sense. And so I want to be able to speak plain English with people. I want to have clear communication with people. And if there's a problem, I want to be able to solve it with the team and be collaborative in my approach. And these are things I'm kind of trialing out now as I'm, as a still a new startup. I've really only been working for 5 months this year, given the lockdown. So we've got so many moving parameters that were unexpected that just increases then, your leadership capability, and you can't catch up with everybody as you used to do pre-lockdown. So how do you communicate jobs? How do you make sure everybody's following, protocol and stuff? It's a little bit crazy.
Well, that's one of the reasons I was really excited about bringing you on, because on the face of it, you've made a little bit of a jump. And how I sort of put it in my head was you've climbed this leadership ladder through experience in the corporate world, yeah. And you've made a jump to another ladder. And we kind of, those ladders are quite far apart, yeah. Because it's different, it's new. And we just know through like the physics of it that if you do a big jump, you're going to land lower down on that, yeah. ladder. But you're also taking over all the experience that you had previously. But you are right, that self-awareness, it's going to be different. And I was really interested to hear your perspective on some of the real challenges that are different between the two worlds.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest challenge is that I moved into an industry that I wasn't familiar with, honestly, Stu. So that has really impacted my ability to lead in the way that I would want to lead, because I set up this company to bring a customer service element from my side and have technical people on the ground, but I'm learning every day what they do. And I don't think you can be as an effective, a good leader without really understanding the roles and responsibilities in every technical part of a job. I'm never going to be a builder, but I want to learn enough so that I can, have enough information to kind of formulate, okay, so this is the plan today, this is the plan tomorrow. And honestly, I've learned a shed load since January. Like, I can do things today that I didn't dream I could do, 8 months ago. And that's simply because I'm constantly learning about what's happening on the job. I'm asking questions. I'm trying to make sure that everybody is responsible and I'm held responsible as well. So it does impact your leadership from that perspective. And it's hard as well to really practice what you preach when you're wearing 50 hats at the same time, honestly, because realistically, like in my corporate job, I was only being a leader and I was in my, comfort zone with like managing M&A projects or terminations or whatever it was. But here, I'm an accountant half a day, I'm a lawyer half a day, I'm a leader for 20 minutes, then I've got to jump back and be an accountant or a problem solver or go source some materials. And it's like, until you kind of grow a team and you can actually delegate some more. Like, it sometimes is a bit of a challenge to be like, okay, you need to do this and you need to be a bit clearer and lead in a better way, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting as well, because it's that kind of link between, do you need to know all the answers? And when I speak to people and people talk about leadership, sometimes that perspective of, and that's, you mentioned stress, or your perception of stress, about people put themselves in these kind of, I need to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a breakthrough when you have that communication with your team that I don't have all the answers, but I'll go out there and find it, and I'll connect the dots, and I'll make sure this happens through your leadership. You don't need to know all the answers.
Yeah. And collaboration is big for me in terms of leadership. Like, I know what my leadership needs to look like and where I want it to get to. And I want a team where, which is what I previously had in my corporate life, where I didn't make decisions on behalf of the team. We collaboratively always made decisions, and we always bore the consequences of those decisions together. So I want to have to run a company where my leadership evokes that, where people want to come to work every day and because they have fun at work. I don't want to create a company where people don't have fun, because I want to have fun at work. My God, we spend like all our lives at work. So it's creating that environment, but it's super challenging when you start in a company to be able to create that from day one, because there's just so many things that are happening at the same time. So you've really got to kind of think, okay, what is priority? What small things can you do on a daily basis to start to build that culture and that environment that you want to create once you are able to? Yeah.
So a quick question, because I mentioned about when you say introduce yourself, all the things, all the hats, you're always positive, always happy, smiling. Where does your drive and determination come from?
That's a really good question. I'm one of these people, like I said, that I just don't think twice when I want to do something. I kind of just do it. And, you know, I had to leave the UAE to come to the UK for personal reasons. And I just, there's no option for me to fail. I have to do right. And I have a corporate background. I know how a company runs. And I've learned what other industries, how other industries operate. I've worked in automotive, I've worked in FMCG, and I've worked in engineering. I didn't know anything about these industries when I walked into it, but I walked out with significant knowledge. So when I took the shift from HR to construction, I was a bit like, I didn't even think about it, Stu. I was just like, oh, I'll set up a building contracting company because that will perfectly complement my property development. Not thinking, can I actually do it or can I not? And, you know, it's working.
Yeah.
I have good customer reviews. I'm not generating any leads at the minute. We're getting referrals. So something that I'm doing is working. And so I think you have to really balance the good days with the bad days, like reflect on the bad days, but not let it overshadow the good stuff that's happening, because it's super easy to get kind of worn down by it. And I just choose not to ever look at that for too long. There's always a way to make things better. And I think if you have that mindset, that you will and you have to have that mindset as a leader. I think you can't be a downer. Who wants to work with a downer? You have to always be positive and energetic, because when days are tough, the guys work really hard on site. The last thing they want is like, ooh, really heavy like person who's managing the stuff, and just say, you know, it has to be positive.
Yeah, that's and it fits into my category of a lot of leaders and business owners don't realize the control they have over the environment that they create. And that comes, and again, we go back to self-awareness, listening and communicating and finding out. The more information that we have, the more things we have control over.
Yeah.
So just as we finish off last couple of minutes, I want to sort of test you a little bit.
Okay.
And when I say that word test, you're probably going to be worried now. When I asked you about where did your leadership journey started, and I've sort of alluded to it a couple of times, but you started with like your corporate and your job and your world. Is there anything further back that you can think, yeah, I started to, and again, on reflection, kind of underpins where you are, your drive, your determination, your motivation, your leadership? Was anything before you even went into education?
Yeah, your parents, my mum. Okay. My mum was, really was doing a position back in, the 90s and 2000s that many Asian ladies weren't doing. And she was always very encouraging to say, you can do whatever you want to do. Don't go down the traditional route, because, traditionally Asian girls would just get married, have kids, and, that was it. I didn't want to do that. She didn't want me to do that. She encouraged me always to kind of just try new things and, be the best that you could be. And I think your upbringing really plays a big part in the person that you are, and just giving people space, whether it's as a leader or a parent, like allowing people to kind of experience things, but also be responsible. I think is really important to development of people and how they view life ultimately. So yeah, my mum's been a massive influence for me.
Oh, fab! That's right. Just hearing that from you, finishing off on that point, that really like resonates with what you've said so far. And again, talk about. I say to everybody that everybody's a leader, and we're leading ourselves and we're leading others. And you know, I've got a big passion about leadership transforming into parenting, because the transferable skills are massive. And you've spoke about transferable skills from corporate into running your own business. Obviously, I've been there as well. But yeah, so just finish off. Other people in your position starting a business, okay, at the start of their leadership journey, what would you say?
I would say don't give up. You are going to have really, really horrible days, but you will also have good days. Choose to celebrate the good days and don't weigh yourself too much with the bad days. And celebrate small successes as well, and rest and exercise, because that's super important. And I've gained a little bit of weight because I forgot about that for a period of time, but it is super important because you need to have a strong body in order to have a strong mind and really be a good leader. So for me, like, that's super important. So
yeah, fantastic. Also, I can resonate with what you just said there, and it's like what you said about wearing lots of hats. I always say spinning lots of plates. It's amazing how you can just suddenly neglect one and it can have a big impact on all. So awesome. So Ishtar, that's us, 20 minutes. Thank you so much for your sharing your story.
Thank you.
So guys, if you've enjoyed that and you're watching us on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell. That'll tell you every Wednesday morning that we've got another episode coming out at 6 a.m. If you're listening to us on your podcast provider, please hit us a review and let us know what you got from this specific episode, and pass it forward and share this podcast. So thank you so much again. Lastly, thank you for your time, Ishtar.
Thank you.
And see you all next week. Take care. Bye.
Bye.